Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of Cabinet. It's 4 o'clock, so we'll get on with things. First item on the agenda is apologies for absence, and you'll notice that Councillors Riley and Jordan are not with us, and I think we've had apologies from them. So please, can we just note that? Next item is declarations of interest. Can I ask you please to make any declarations of interest and the reasons for those declarations on any of the items on this afternoon's agenda? Has anyone any declarations to make? No? Right, thank you. We'll therefore move on then to the minutes of our last meeting on the 25th of April 2007. I'll take it that you've read them. Has anyone got anything they want to add? Any questions, any queries? Happy to accept them?
Agreed.
All agreed? Thank you. Right, questions from the public. Welcome, Mr. Sharp. I think we have a question from you this afternoon. Would you like to put that question?
Thank you. Question is, the City Council claims a Plymsock swimming pool will be built at Sherford. No date given, no legal papers seen. Brian Deacon of the Sherford Consortium has said on the web, if a pool does not come to fruition, other things will. It does not sound like a swimming pool guarantee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. I have an answer from you, which I'll give you in Councillor Jordan's absence. And the answer is this. Thank you for your latest question regarding a swimming pool at Plymstock. The City Council's policy position on this matter has not changed, with the most up-to-date position now reflected in policy PLY 48 of the Plymouth and South West Devon Joint Local Plan, unanimously approved by the City Council on the 27th of February 2017. Policy PLY 48 sets out the provisions for all community and other infrastructure associated with Sherford development. PLY 48 bracket 7 item 3 specifically includes provision for, and I quote, sports recreation facilities including an indoor sports facility and swimming pool and approximately 31 hectares of outdoor playing pitches and courts. The citation from the website sets out in the question does not appear to be a direct quote from the developers, who advise that, quote, through the recently completed strategic review, the Development Consortium has worked hard to maintain a very wide array of social infrastructure that was originally intended. While there are challenges to providing the leisure centre, particularly in relation to the long-term viability of such a facility, a detailed study has been commissioned which considers how it can be configured to meet local demands and maximise future revenue. This report indicates that the leisure centre, if configured carefully, should be viable. The report has recently been provided to the local authorities, and discussions are due to take place with the intention that the facility can be commissioned and delivered to meet the programme as set out in the section 106. That's the answer for you. Thank you, Mr. Sharp. Right, we'll move on to the next item, Chair's urgent business. I just have one item which I just want to draw to Cabinet's attention, and that is that I have signed off today an executive decision featuring the Highways Capital Maintenance Programme for 2017-18 to 2018-19 inclusive. In essence, this increases the allocation for the current year for this process to 6.732 million, for next year to 4.425 million, and for 2019-20 to 3.525 million. This is all about reaffirming our commitment to invest in a highways network which meets the needs of the city as we move forward, particularly trying to put in place a structure which is fit for the 21st century. And really it's all about improving the condition of the highways network. this has been a subject which this administration has been very keen to focus on, and we've been very clear that we want to see that take place. And I personally am looking forward to the components contained in this decision to be delivered over the next 2 to 3 years. And I'd also like to thank Councillors Nicholson and Ricketts for their work putting this piece of all this together so that it was ready to be signed off today. So that has been published, and I'll rely on Councillor Ricketts and Nicholson now to continue to drive forward on that particular piece of work. Right, thank you. The next item is item 6, which is the 2016-17 financial outturn. Councillor Darcy, would you like to take us through that one, please?
Thank you, Leader. Cabinet colleagues will have no doubt read the paper before you. I make no apologies, it's quite a lengthy paper, but as you will have discovered by reading through that, it's a very good story indeed. I would like to present the Revenue and Capital Financial Outturn position to Cabinet for the financial year of 2016-17. Members will be fully aware of the tough and very challenging financial times we are facing, and we faced in 16-17. This was no different with the combined forces of a smaller resource base and ever-increasing demands making the financial performance of the Council even harder. 2016-17 posed a number of challenges, none more so than the need to deliver £23.8 million of savings and the management of £531.6 million gross budget through a varied range of services and performance standards. In addition, the Council continues with its ambitious capital investment programme, where £90.4 million was invested within the City during this period, record levels of investment. In presenting the outturn report to Cabinet, we should be mindful that the final outturn at this stage is subject, of course, to external audit review, which is due to commence in June. In terms of the revenue budget, Leader, the Council will declare a balanced outturn position after the application of reserves and capital receipts. Without these minor adjustments, there would have been a pressure of 1.272 million, which needs to be seen in the context of 531.6 million gross budget and 186.7 million net budget. Further, Cabinet members are reminded that at the starting point of 2016's financial year, with almost a £5 million legacy of undelivered budget savings from the previous administration, this is a very good result by all accounts. Members have received regular revenue monitoring reports throughout the year, which identified the main pressures the Council faced. These included increased demand within social care arising from demographic pressures, increasingly complex client needs, and increasing cost to those services. As at the end of the third quarter of the financial year, the People Directorate was forecasting a £0.973 million pressure. However, building upon the success of the integrated fund and working with partners, this has been reduced to £0.159 million. Transformation and Change declared a small underspend at year-end, and the Office of Director of Public Health declared a balanced position within its ring-fenced grant through its savings programme and made financial contributions towards other schemes across directorates. The Council has had unavoidable pressure, such as the pension deficit, which reflects the reduction in the Council's workforce since the last actuarial valuation in 2013, and the impact this has had on our pension contribution to Devon County Pension Fund. The Place Directorate has been forecasting an overspend during the year, but recovered the position and came close to balancing its budget. Underspends were achieved within economic development and strategic planning and infrastructure, but there were pressures within waste due to increased tonnage of waste and challenging targets within the fleet and garage services. Despite these pressures, the Council has and will continue to deliver savings arriving from its transformation programme, which will support the Council in managing the requirement for ever more efficient and improved and innovative ways of working which support the Council delivering its priorities as set out in the corporate plan. The report also sets out the key financial performance indicators, with strong performance regarding our collection of income and treasury management. In order to declare a balanced outturn position, members are asked to note the release of the stock transfer reserve and apply capital receipts to the revenue budget. By undertaking these adjustments, the Council will be able to protect its working balance, which will remain at 5% of the Council's net revenue budget. As the Council continues its transformation programme, there will inevitably be the need to restructure and redesign services. With this in mind, I ask members to approve the transfer of £350,000 into the redundancy reserve to support the cost for future restructuring, although we will be attempting to minimise any job losses from within our permanent workforce. The Council has already set out an ambitious capital investment programme over the next 5 years. In 2016-17, the Council invested £90.4 million in the City, and this compared to £62 million last year. That's a 45% increase. Approximately half of this was invested in key city infrastructure, helping to secure much-needed jobs, housing and regeneration. A further third was invested into city property, helping to secure a sustainable financial future for the Council. The Council also achieved 88% completion of the programme compared to 81% last year. Among the key investments were £30.8 million of asset investment acquisitions, some £7.3 million of strategic property acquisitions, £5.8 million of investment in carriageway resurfacing, and £5.5 million major investment projects, with further details within the report. Building on this, members will also be aware that over the next 5 years, the Council will increase investment by £266 million, enabling delivery of projects within a total value of £417 million. In summary, Leader, the Council has responded positively to the financial challenges it has faced in the last financial year and is well placed to meet the challenges in the 2017-18 financial year. And I think it's important to repeat that point. This is despite the legacy of the almost £5 million of undelivered savings from the previous administration in 2015-16. And you will recall, Leader, working to a budget drafted by the previous administration, to which we pointed out at the time of budget setting that the budget was unsafe and not properly costed, and those concerns very much came home to roost. At this point, it's also important, Leader, to acknowledge and recognise the efforts of our Chief Executive and all the departments and all the staff within this organisation who, across all the departments, have worked tirelessly on behalf of the residents of this city and all members of the Council to drive out those efficiency savings, identify revenue opportunities, and make sure that we return the figures that we're considering today. So I think that should be noted, and perhaps a recommendation. I appreciate it's not in my paper, but I would like to add a further recommendation to acknowledge the efforts of the Chief Executive and all members of the Council's staff. So on that basis, Leader, I now recommend to Cabinet the recommendation set out in the report, but for the avoidance of doubt, certainly number 1, to note the provisional outturn position as of the 31st of March 2017. That, of course, is subject to the audits I mentioned at the outset in in June. Number 2, note the use of capital receipts, 0.267 million, to write down the MRP to ensure a balanced budget position is achieved in 2016-17. 3, approve the additional transfers to and from reserves reflected within the outturn figures, i.e. the release the business rates reserve at 1 million, transfer to housing benefits overpayments provision of 1 million, and release of stock transfer release at 1 million, just over 1 million. 4, approve the release of £350,000 from working balances and transfer to the redundancy reserve. 5, Note the capital report, including the capital financing requirement of 90.4 million. And as I said, I'd like to add an additional recommendation, if possible, please, to acknowledge the efforts of our Chief Executive and all the Council staff for turning these figures and performances that you see before you. Leader, that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Darcy. I'm sure all members of Cabinet would be happy to support your additional recommendation. I think we all recognise that this has been a particularly difficult year. I think my memory is right. We ended up with a savings target of some £23 million, and we've got, almost there, shall we say. I think the variation that actually this represents is 0.68%, if my maths is correct. So to me, that's a pretty creditable outcome for this council and this year. So I'm sure Cabinet members, as I say, will support your additional recommendation. Just before I ask Cabinet members if they have anything they wish to add, can I just check with Andrew Hardingham? Andrew, do you want to add anything at this stage?
No, Leader, there's nothing further for me to add.
Thank you. So, Cabinet members, any comments? Councillor Mrs Bowyer, then Mrs Beer.
Thank you, Leader. Leader, this report sets out our financial outturn position, and I'll cover public health and strategic cooperative commissioning and how this feeds into the Plymouth Integrated Fund under the Section 75 agreement with the new Devon CCG. Despite the reduced grant for the year, the Directorate of Public Health came in as a balanced budget within the ring-fence grant. The Directorate achieved its savings target for 16-17 of £1.493 million and further in-year savings of £1.014 million, giving total savings of £2.5 million. The savings were achieved through a mix of contract renegotiations for Commission Public Health Services, a Directorate restructure, which created multidisciplinary teams and an integrated management structure, vacancy savings and increased activity in the chargeable services and enforcement. As part of the balanced budget, the Office of Directorate for Public Health made contributions of £0.625 million towards schemes within other council departments and prepared contingency plans to achieve the anticipated further reduction to the ring-fence grant of 17-18. I have reported on several occasions that adult social care is facing unprecedented pressure, in line with other authorities across the country. We have to be aware that life expectancy is going up, so people are living longer, which is a good thing and must be celebrated, but this does mean there are more people living for longer with long-term health conditions who require more long-term care. As this is happening at the same time as our overall budget funding is reducing, it is therefore refreshing to be able to report that for the second consecutive year we have come in with a budget saving for the department. This year we came in £7,000 under budget, and I stress the under budget, with a spend of £75.798 million. I can outline exactly what our money spent, but I would like to just carry on and say savings were achieved as a result of management actions to contain spend, which included measures around signed off the spend by senior management before approving care packages, reviewing contracts, and a further review of high-cost packages. Leader, it should be noted that the service also delivered £5.4 million of savings, a part of the transformation project. As far as the adult social care, we're in the Section 75 with the new Devon CCG. We're already in a very strong position, thanks to our award-winning collaboration with our key partners. As I've reported before, in Plymouth we choose to go further than the boundaries set for the Section 75 Better Care Fund. We are using the Section 75 agreement to pool funds from both the Council and the new 7 CCG to create an overall fund for care in the city. This is the second year we have been working with a fund budget of £295 million. And on the risk share that we set up with this fund, the risk share impact stands at 26,000 from health to local authority. This is an improvement over the position forecast at month 11 and last year's final risk share of 39,000 from CCG to Plymouth City Council. Just to, if I may, just outline some of the things that we've actually achieved and made these savings. 4,700 adults received long-term social care packages. 3,443 people received community-based packages. We were awarded Dementia Friendly City of the Year at the Alzheimer's Society Annual Awards. And we know we have at least 3,000 people living with dementia in Plymouth, and this is predicted to rise. Our Quality Assurance and Improvement team regularly monitor and review 104 care homes in Plymouth. We awarded £150,000 in grants to 18 care homes to improve their facilities, with contributions from home providers, £232,295 was spent on new bathrooms, redevelopment of gardens, lounges and conservatories. 610,000 hours of care to help people live in their own homes were delivered in this city. We've got 46,000 pieces of equipment to help 17,000 people stay in their own homes, and 800 people receive support through direct payment. I could go on, but obviously I don't want to take any more of Cabinet's time, but I think you can see, although we have been challenged, I think we have delivered to the people of this city, and I'm very proud to say that not only have we come in on budget, we have a slight underspend. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs Bowe. I think Cabinet would undoubtedly agree this is a hugely impressive set of figures there that you've quoted to us, and I think although the acknowledged problems around delivery, particularly in terms of adult social care nationwide, we all know it's a raging debate, but I think the figures you've quoted to us bear testimony that whilst that debate is raging around us, staff here in this city have got on and delivered for Plymouth, and I think that's really very, very creditable. So thank you for that. Councillor Mrs Beer, did you want to comment?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I'd like to talk about children, young people and families. I'd like to say a few words around the financial outturn for children and young people services in Plymouth. The Children and Young People and Families Service are reporting an adverse outturn position of 0.209 million, with a final spend of 34.369 million against a budget of 34.161 million. This is a tremendous result in a demand-led environment against the background of increased overall number of children in care. For example, the number of children placed in independent fostering agencies finished the year at 100 against a target of 70 placements. Residential placements finished at 28 against a target of 20 budgeted placements, with the number of these placements being at high costs due to the complex needs of these children. At the end of March, there were 2 young people placed in welfare secure environments. Against this, however, the in-house foster care placements had 178 included connected carers placements against the target budget of 219 placements, and there were no court-ordered independent foster placements at year-end. Also, as part of the transformation project for 2016-17, the Children, Young People's and Families made savings of approximately 2.1 million. Additional costs have been offset wherever possible, and £1 million has been saved through enhanced voluntary release scheme and the transformation services, together with a further 0.8 million through the review and commissioning of placements. In addition, there has been a further one-off saving due to vacancy savings and management interventions, such as a review of high-cost care packages plus challenges and review sessions with budget holders and finance review. Education, participation and skills are reporting a favourable position of £24,000 at the end of the financial year due to the reduction in special educational needs, care packages and other minor changes across the service. During the year, education, participation and skills budget also made savings of £1.269 million through EVRS. Maximum of grants and transformation of services. Leader, I'd just like to bring us back to the targeted placements, which I've mentioned in my speech. That's inherited from the previous administration, and I have to say that we should be proud to be putting in a 1.8 million to recognise the additional number in placements, and we're continuing to drive efficiencies and savings towards the 1.5 targeted budget. Continuing to reduce the number of independent foster care placements, working with our key partners Live Well South West in the development of our out-of-hours provision and reviewing all placements and further system review to ensure early intervention and prevention and support services. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Mrs. Beer. Again, I think that's a fantastic result, given that what you're trying to deal with there is a demand-led service, and that is always difficult, as much as it does in adult social care, particularly in children's services as well. We do appreciate those difficulties that we're all managing there. Mike Leaves, you want to say something?
Yes, I just want to thank really my team of in the street services and cleansing and everything, because when we inherited a budget that was really reduced, with no identified savings at all in the budget. Grass growing, if you remember, everybody screaming because the grass was growing, nobody to cut the grass. So now I think we've tackled the problem this year. Hopefully going forward, we had more refuse going to the waste transfer station for no reason. Increased waste, less recycling. The target was not good at all. Now I think we put in place now that we're going to increase our recycling rate and let less waste go into the waste energy plant. So I think all in all, this year is going to be a nice, good, hopefully a good year. We get it on budget and give a good service for the people of Plymouth, which they require.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, I think we do need to just reflect on the fact that this time last year we were walking around the city with grass 2 or 3 feet high where the system wasn't working properly. So thank you for your efforts and all those of the team that you lead there for making sure that this year we didn't see a repeat performance. I think that's been a major step forward. So thank you for that. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Leader. Well, I echo your comments and those of Councillor Leaves in that it's only 12 months that we've actually had the opportunity to run this city, and under your leadership, providing strong and stable leadership, which has delivered a good outturn in this financial year. And I think we need to bear in mind, particularly on the capital programme, to have a capital programme of £90 million in-year spend is a formidable achievement, and everybody should congratulate themselves on delivering such a spend in year. Given the fact that last year it was only 62 million, traditionally the capital programme for a number of years has not been as large as it's been certainly in this last financial year moving forward. So everybody should be congratulated for achieving that, and I hope very much this is an ongoing delivery that we will see next year. We've got a challenging capital programme moving forward, but I think for the wider community, we often talk about all the major schemes, but don't actually focus on the caring side of the capital programme. So I think Mrs. Bowyer did allude to it in her contribution, but £2 million have gone to disabled facilities grants, helping those very needy in the community adapt their homes so they can stay in the community. Equally, I don't think our environmental credentials, I know Councillor Leeds particularly is very keen to ensure that we promote this, but the capital programme's providing £1.4 million in Green Deal grants to private households for solid wall fuel insulation. Equally, we provided a loan of £2.9 million to the Ernest Settle Community Solar Farm, again looking at those green credentials of this council. So, I think there are facets of the budget that don't necessarily always get the headlines, which show that we are a caring council here, as Mrs Beer and Mrs Bowyer have said, the majority of the budget of this council goes on looking after children, looking after the elderly. You know, Conservatives are about caring for people, not just about job creation and road schemes, for which I'm passionate like you, Leader, but it's all about caring for the public. And so this is a great performance, and I'd particularly like to pay tribute to my colleagues in strategic planning infrastructure who have helped in some ways balance the place budget. I know that there are challenges in street services, and we generally need to make sure that we balance the books, and I'm pleased that we've endeavoured to do that by providing savings of around £700,000. I'm not quite sure moving forward if those sort of levels of savings are necessarily going to occur in the coming financial year, but nevertheless it's been a formidable performance from the staff that report to me. So congratulations to all our colleagues, Leader. Again, echo the words of appreciation to staff, because without officers we would be somewhat unable to deliver. We can only set the strategy, but the staff need and the organisation need to deliver, so well done.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Chief Executive.
Thank you, Leader. I'd just like to thank you very much for acknowledging the work by staff. £23 million of savings is no mean feat, particularly on the back of 64 million of the previous 3 years. So I think it's been a really difficult slog to get there, but I think you'll agree that in terms of the service standards, we've done our absolute best to maintain and where possible improve on those service standards. I think there is a word of caution inevitably that we can't sit back on our laurels on back of £23 million of savings. Obviously this year, this new financial year, we've got 18 million, it's at nearly £18.5 million of savings, and particularly for the small number of one-offs that we've used to balance the books for last year, that's a carry forward, and so the work never ends in terms of trying to make sure we're delivering really good services for less money. But thank you very much, and we'll make sure that your appreciation is passed on to all the staff.
Thank you, Tracy. Just a couple of points that in this report which I think ought to be drawn out. We actually collected in year more council tax than the previous year. Given the recent interest of the BBC in this particular subject, I think that's an important thing to make clear. We collected last year more or less £97 in every hundred in year, and we will still obviously continue to chase the outstanding balance over a period of time. Something else in the report there, 98.6% of all supplier invoices were paid by this council within 30 days against our target of 95%, so we exceeded our target, and I think that's again testimony to some of the unsung day in day out work that goes on behind the scenes, but actually it oils the local economy. When you look at the third point I just want to make in the report here, that 56% of our spend last year was incurred within the PL postal code area against 53% the year before. So all those three I think are pretty significant figures, and I think it also underlines our commitment to supporting the local economy. So so well done to all concerned. But I'd just like to join with the Chief Executive's comments there, or a little bit of health warning, caution. You've done it all once last year. You've got to do it all over again this year and every year as it happens. But so I want you please now to really start focusing on the current year. Still £18 million of savings to be delivered. It's never easy. I think we all recognise that, but it's only by the hard slog day in, day out, paying attention and focusing on the detail required that we get this sort of result. So thank you each and every one of you for your efforts there, working with your respective staff throughout the entire council. So Ian, do you want to just finish off?
If I may, Leader, thank you. Just a very brief summary. It would be very remiss of me not to mention, whilst I did acknowledge the Chief Executive and all staff, not to mention, of course, our award-winning finance team under the direction of Andrew Hardingham, who have worked tirelessly to enable those results also in terms of revenue collections, invoice collections, and paying invoices on time and generating that local spend within the PL zones. It's also very remiss of me not to acknowledge the work of my Cabinet colleagues who have met with their respective directorates and the leaders of those directorates and had some very long, late and difficult meetings discussing some very difficult subjects to deliver these outturns, and that should also be acknowledged. You touched off it briefly, and I know the Chief Exec has also mentioned and reminded us that we do have quite an ambitious target to meet going forward, and we shouldn't lose sight of that. It's great to bask in this success briefly, but we do have a very challenging figure to realise this year in some 18.5 million. But I think what we've demonstrated since taking over, and Councillor Nicholson alighted on that for briefly, is that as a Conservative-led local authority, we don't duck those difficult decisions, despite the political ramifications, because, let's face it, we're very public-facing, and those decisions we make can hurt us on the doorstep, and we haven't let that dissuade our ambition to improve the range of services that this council continues to offer despite the pressures. And it's right that those services must continue providing great service, but also good value for money for the taxpayer of the city. And it's right to acknowledge that sometimes those decisions are difficult to sell on the doorstep, but nevertheless that's what you get with a Conservative-led council, is that we will take the difficult decisions because we know it's right for the city going forward. So I'm very confident with the assistance of all the staff that we've mentioned, all the directorate leaders and the Chief Executive going forward. I'm confident at this stage of this financial year that we will deliver what's going to be expected of us and continue delivering those services that the council has delivered over the last financial year. So that's all I wanted to say, Leader. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Councillor Darcy, and I look forward to the 3rd of July when the trophy will be duly presented by the Lord Mayor. Yes, okay. All right, good stuff. All right, Cabinet, you've got the recommendations. Can I ask you please to indicate your support for those? Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Move on to item 7 then, which is the Corporate Plan 2016 to 19, which is the latest quarter's report. Andrew, welcome. Could you please just take us through that report, Andrew? Just highlight the salient points, if you would. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. So this is the Q4 Corporate Plan report, reporting on the period from January to March. And it's just to note, really, that we've continued to make changes and improvements to the corporate plan so that now we hope it better represents the kind of level of progress and challenges that the council faces. Also, we've taken on board some of the comments that we had going through the scrutiny process and through Cabinet last time. We've tried to simplify presentation of some of the key indicators so that it's a much easier report to use and pulls out those kind of salient points. We will continue to improve this document, and one of the things that we'll be focusing on following a review of performance indicators across the council is a review of indicators within the corporate plan, so that enables a quarterly discussion around progress. So in terms of key highlights, under each area of the corporate plan, so each vision, under pioneering, it's highlighted the work that continues in terms of delivery of the transformation programme, so things like smarter working, agile HR, and the council continuing to develop its web platform. We talked about some of the challenges in developing our capability to generate intelligence that informs decision making. So the project that is dealing with that is now being rebranded and reviewed in light of those project outputs. In terms of growing, All the activity is on track with a focus on jobs and skills being articulated through the Plan for Education and the development of the Employment and Skills Board. And then we also talk about within the city the 800 homes that are expected to be completed by March 2018, and then some of the challenges around, unfortunately, 2 bids that were not successful around Morlaye Drive and Catdown. Then within caring, we go on to articulate some of the comments here around the pressure, certainly within the social care environment, and also within delivery of housing pathways. So we have the creation of the new Community Connection Service to help deliver on those pathways. We also have plans to improve the Safeguarding Board and the performance indicators, whilst again highlighting that pressure in the social care arena, and homelessness and Category 1 hazard removal in terms of making sure residences are safe. It also celebrates the ongoing sustained good performance around employment, education and training for children and young people with special educational needs and disabilities. And then finally, going on to confident and improved street scenes, it talks about the 7 items due for delivery as part of the modernisation programme, including the community engagement plans, recycling on the go. And there's a slight delay in Q4 around the people strategy, and that's now being progressed. And that's essentially the highlights from the plan.
Thank you, Andrew. I think that's a fairly positive picture. With an organisation of the size and complexity of the City Council, I think it probably is unrealistic to expect everything to be absolutely on target each and every occasion. But I'm sure Cabinet members will have taken note of the points that Andrew's made, and you've read the report there, and I'm sure that you will continue to bear down on those areas that are flagging up as requiring closer scrutiny. Any Cabinet members have anything to add or question to ask? You're recommended to note the report. Can I ask you, therefore, will you please note the report? Yes? Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you, Andrew. So, next item, colleagues, is the people strategy. And again, welcome, Dawn. And again, I'm assuming members have read this report. It's essentially our people plan on a page, and it's our vision for the workforce, where we are clear that we are looking for motivated, skilled and an engaged workforce, seeing that as an essential foundation to the delivery of our corporate plan. 3 themes are contained within that report: talent, leadership and culture, and I'm sure each of you understand how important each of those components is. We will obviously address the issues highlighted by our annual staff survey, which, as you know, we do each year, and that will be picked up as part of the report. I should add that the report has been taken to scrutiny by Councillor Riley back on the 1st of March, and I know he's taken on board the feedback that he got, and I think the current version now has a strengthened equality impact assessment performance target there. So I'm obviously seeking your endorsement to this strategy, but before I ask you to add any comments or give us that endorsement, can I ask you, Dawn, is there anything you wish to add?
No, I think that's a very comprehensive and quick overview, Leader, but I'm very happy to take any questions should Cabinet members have any for me.
Thank you, Dawn. Cabinet members, any questions around the people strategy? No? All happy? Councillor Darcy?
It's not a question, it's just an observation, Leader. We've discussed this previously in different forums, but I very much like this document. I like the strategy. I like how it reinforces our vision and our corporate ethos in that respect. And it's a very user-friendly document. It's simplistic in nature, but I think it's a very powerful reinforcing document. So I very much welcome this.
Thank you, Ian. I know Councillor Riley has worked hard on this, refining it, and I think the version that we have here is good and is clear. That's the point, and I think that's probably its strength, that it is that clarity there. So thank you. So if all Cabinet are happy to endorse and support the People Strategy, thank you. Thank you very much, Dawn. Right, colleagues, we'll move on to item 9 on the agenda, which is the compulsory purchase order resolution for the regeneration of Phase 5 at North Prospect. And I'll ask Councillor Nicholson just to introduce this item.
Fine, thank you, Leader. Well, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome Neil Mawson from our housing delivery team. Neil is a key lead for the regeneration of North Prospect, so I'm always delighted that those that are responsible for activity in the council actually come to the Cabinet rather than rely on the director. So Neil is the man that's on the ground made North Prospect happen so far. We've been undergoing various phases, but basically the stopgap has always been that if we can't negotiate the acquisition of property to facilitate the redevelopment of North Prospect, we've had to rely potentially on a compulsory purchase order. And this is what this is about, to move for a later phase. I'll let Neil cover off the detail, but I'm welcome very much Neil's attendance. And Neil, if you'd like briefly to take us through sort of Phase 5 and the reason why we're looking for a compulsory purchase order to be approved.
Okay, as Patrick says, I'm the lead officer within the housing delivery team, which sits in strategic planning infrastructure, working on North Prospect, have done for the last 5 years. Just to recap quickly about North Prospect, it's the largest estate regeneration project in the southwest, and it's been delivered in partnership between Plymouth Community Homes, Plymouth City Council and a number of private sector developers. It's a 5-phase development involving the demolition of 800 existing properties that are beyond economic repair and replacing them with up to 1,200 new properties and refurbishing 300 additional existing properties on top of that. Phases 1 and 2 are complete, or very nearly complete. Phase 2. Phase 3 is now underway and is progressing well. So attention is now refocused onto Phase 5 rather than Phase 4. The order of phasing has been changed, and you'll note Phase 4 is being pushed back to a later date for reasons around deliverability and cost. So the report that submitted to Cabinet today is in relation to a request for a resolution for compulsory purchase order in the event that it should be required. And I'll just set out why that may be the case. For Plymouth Community Homes to go into partnership with a private sector developer, they need to provide certainty around site assembly, and in particular for the 25 private owners of property within the Phase 5 area. To date, 8 of those owners have agreed terms and have sold their property to Plymouth Community Homes, but that 17 remain outstanding. And as I say, for Plymouth Community Homes to sign a contract with a private developer, they need to offer that security. When stock transfer was made in 2009, there was a provision within the legal agreement, the transfer agreement, that Plymouth Community Homes were enabled to request the City Council to provide, to use compulsory purchase powers on their behalf. I would stress that there is no cost to the City Council because Plymouth Community Homes are required to underwrite all legal costs attached to a CPO should it be required. In this case, what's being requested is a resolution to make CPO powers in the event that they are required. And I would add that for the previous 3 phases, those powers, that resolution has been made, but the powers have never needed to be used because in all cases, all private owners have agreed terms to sell their properties. So that's the background in terms of why this report has come to Cabinet again. If I could perhaps just conclude by reading the final paragraph. The resolution to make a CPO will provide a level of certainty of achieving unified land ownership to both Plymouth Community Homes and their developer partner to proceed with the development at Phase 5. To date, substantial progress has been made to acquire the privately owned properties by agreement, and PCH will continue to make every effort to acquire all remaining interests without resorting to a CPO. However, as this cannot be guaranteed, it is considered necessary for Cabinet to agree a resolution to make a CPO should it be required. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. I'm conscious that we actually do have the Director of Place in the room this afternoon. Would you like to add anything, or are you happy at this point?
I'm totally happy, thank you.
Totally happy. Thank you, Mr. Payne. That's really helpful. Cabinet, any questions?
I can just say one.
Of course you can. Yeah.
Just to follow on, thank you, Neil, for that excellent presentation. I think strategically we're keen, and I'm certainly keen as the relevant Cabinet member, to drive redevelopment. So where we're seeking to bring forward schemes and assist others like Plymouth Community Homes, then we can't be held to ransom, and there'll be other instances where we need to use, and it's only the local authority or central government that can use compulsory purchase, that is actually known that we will use it to facilitate redevelopment. And I think just that broader message is we're not going to be hamstrung by one or two individuals potentially over some of these major redevelopments. North Prospect has been progressing well. We want it to continue to progress and be completed. And likewise, there may, Leader, in the future be other such resolutions coming before Cabinet on other sites where we want to drive regeneration. So it's very, very important that Cabinet supports this, sends the right message. We're committed to North Prospect. We want to complete the scheme. It's providing sustainable communities for the future and providing decent homes. So it's important that we drive this agenda. So I welcome your support today.
Thank you, Patrick. Right, Cabinet, the recommendation is on page 74 of your papers this afternoon. We obviously hope that the previous pattern of events is repeated and that this doesn't ultimately become necessary, but I hope you've understood why we feel it's necessary to put this in place. So with that in mind, can I please ask for your support to make this CPO resolution, please? That's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you, Neil.
Councillor Mrs. Bowyer, this one I think is led by you. Would you like to introduce it?
Thank you, Leader. Plymouth City Council, the North, Eastern and Western Devon Clinical Commissioning Group and their partners are introducing a new plan to ensure that veterans and their families have the best access to service in the city. Data indicates we have about 20,000 veterans in Plymouth, and we are aware there is likely to be a greater proportion of mental health and offending support needs within this population. The plan, known as the Veterans Strategic Commissioning Framework, seeks to work with the military community where veterans are preparing for discharge and offer information, advice, signposting and personalised support to ensure a smooth transition to civilian life. Offer training for staff working in mainstream support services such as GP surgeries, and build relationships with specialist service, including those that support children and families, so that these services can offer help to veterans, whatever their situation. Raise awareness of the general public so that veterans know how and where to access support services and the benefits of identifying themselves as veterans. Consult with veterans on the type of health and wellbeing services to be provided in the future, including services for people with complex needs. Develop a veteran-friendly quality mark so that veterans can easily identify services available to them. And lastly, ensure that reservists have access to appropriate services. A large part of the plan will be delivered through a new Veterans Care Navigation Service, which has been funded by £80,000 awarded to Plymouth from the LIBOR fines announced by the government in the autumn statement. This service will provide a coordinated first point of entry for veterans requiring support, enabling them to choose and access services that best suits their needs, build links between specialist and mainstream services, and raise awareness of veterans' issues. Work on the voluntary services has already begun, but it will be formally launched to the public in June. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs Bowyer. Katie, Judith, welcome to this afternoon's meeting. Do you want to add anything further?
Hi, thank you very much. Yes, I think the only thing that I would add to that very comprehensive summary is we're really pleased to have been successful with the LIBOR fines for that, bringing in that welcome resource into the city. But just as important, I think, is to recognise the way that this strategic framework is bringing together existing services and organisations in the city to work together to improve services in a more joined-up way. That's all I would add.
Thank you.
I'd just add, I think it's really good to see us doing something so positive that, again, is at the cutting edge and working with other local authorities, leading that agenda for veterans in our communities.
Thank you, Judith. Cabinet members, any questions? Patrick?
It's not a question, but again, this is building on the good work that we've done on the housing scheme, where we're providing the ability for veterans to build their own accommodation. So this is good work that the City Council is doing, so I congratulate Mrs Bowyer and her officers for bringing this paper today. And I think, you know, if Plymouth is one authority that needs to do this, you know, Plymouth is about, you know, the service community, and therefore we need to do all that we possibly can. So this is excellent, and I hope that where the rest of us can contribute, you know, I'm sure we're more than happy to make this a success. So well done.
Thank you. Councillor Darcy?
Again, I echo what Councillor Nicholson has just proffered. I think it's great news and very interesting to read the papers. But I too think, not distracting from congratulating what's got on here, I think it's important that we recognise on a national level there was an awful lot of criticism in how the government was handling these actions by the bankers and the LIBOR issue. And it's nice to see some of that fines coming now to better use, as opposed to what used to happen with fines previously. They kind of fell into an abyss and nobody knew anymore. Now we're actually seeing some positive outcomes as a result of the government's intervention to deal with these fines and put it to good use. So it's success all the way around, really.
Thank you, Councillor Darcy. Yes, I very much agree with your comments and those of Councillor Nicholson. The LIBOR fines saga gained a lot of publicity, and it's nice to see a positive gloss put on the on that at the end of the day. You know, the military and therefore veterans are part of the city's DNA. It's what we do, and I'm absolutely delighted to see that we're able to bring forward this important piece of work, which I think will provide reassurance and is in its essence the culmination of a lot of efforts from a lot of people for over quite a long period of time. So I think it you know, sets a line in the sand about what this city is about. We do care for veterans. We do want to help wherever possible. And obviously, the more successful we can be in terms of getting veterans back into civilian life successfully and get them operating efficiently and effectively, the better everyone in the city becomes for that. So I'm delighted to see this here today, and I just formally would now want to say to Cabinet members, please would you agree with me that we should agree and deliver the implementation plan of the Veterans Strategic Commissioning Framework, and I'd just like to ask you to show your support for that proposal. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Thank you. And that brings us to the end of this afternoon's meeting, so thank you very much for your time and effort today. Thank you.